Well, hello, and welcome everyone. Today we continue to move on and add to our wonderful world of JavaScript utilities. So, today we are going to be talking about the actual DOM tree. Now, when you're working with JavaScript and HTML and CSS, working with the actual DOM, which is all of our elements within the actual web page, we have to be able to manipulate the actual DOM. That's the wonderful world of JavaScript in a nutshell, is manipulating the actual DOM. So what is that? How do we make sense of it? Let's go on and give a couple of examples within this particular tutorial today. We'll just stick our big toe in the water and get our foot wet and try to figure it out throughout some examples. All right, I'll give you a chance to open up your favorite text editor and let's go on ahead and get this started. So what we're going to do is open up two different files. And of course, when we're working with JavaScript, you want to be able to use any particular editor that you like. I like to use Visual Studio Code. And a lot of people might use Notepad or Notepad++ or Sublime. You can also use Visual Studio itself. So there's a number of different editors. It's really, or actually Eclipse. There's a number of different things that you can actually use when you're actually editing any of these files. So let's see here. Let's go on ahead and open up two new files. And I'm going to call those DOM tree. So domtree.html, and I'm also going to open up domtree.js. All right, and we all know what I'm going to do from here. I'm going to right click on our HTML file, open that up with live server, and I'm going to slide that bad boy over here somewhere and this over here. Close that, close this, maybe shrink that a little bit, play around with it again just to get it right. All right. And okay, I think we're good here now. Okay, so the actual DOM, let's talk about that. So what happens when you create an actual website? All of your HTML, all of your elements, all of your tags. So that is pretty much everything within the actual HTML page is essentially the actual DOM. Okay. Every markup language, anything that you actually put in there is the actual DOM itself. So let's give an example. Let's do some bare bones markup here. And let's actually do some, a little bit of, let's add some HTML here. So if I add a div here and give it a class with the name of wrapper. Okay, and let's just make sure everything's working here. Put some text, make sure that shows up. I don't see it. There it is. Okay. All right, so I got my div class there. I'm going to add an H1. Within that H1, I'll just give it a heading of TV shows. Okay, so every time we add something here to this page, this entire page in itself is an actual document. Now, what happens with that? Well, what happens is it's pretty much called a document node. So if I go over here to the console and let's see, if I type in document, okay, let's see what we get. All right, so this document is an actual object of the entire page. That's why the entire page is highlighted above. All right, if I open that up, look at that. Now I have access to every element, HTML, head, body. If I open up the body, I see my div. Inside my div, I see my H1. Those are all different elements within the entire document object. Some refer to it as a node. It is essentially a document node, but each individual element is an element node. Okay, so every one of these is an element node. Now, of course, there are attribute nodes and there are text nodes. So this particular div here, it does have an attribute. What's the attribute? The attribute is a class. All right. If I were to give it an ID, then it now has an ID of wrapper. You can have the same names there, which is fine. But now this div, this element node has two attributes, an attribute class and an attribute ID. Okay. And when I go back here, I can see all of that within the actual console. If I click down on this, go to the body, and this particular div element it is a div element node and it has two attributes in which it is the class and the ID. What about the text node? Yes, there are text nodes as well. The H1 is an element right here, and it has text in it. So that text alone is an actual text node. So that's pretty much the breakdown of the actual elements and their actual nodes, because we're going to be working with that with a number of different videos ahead of this one. So whenever you are adding additional HTML, in which we'll do that here. Okay, let's add an li. Okay, with an actual ID of 1. So that ID is the attribute. And the text within that, or the text node, is, let's just say, Family Guy. And I'll go on ahead and copy that and paste that in a few times just to add some more text and more actual elements to the page. And let's change the IDs, because we all know we can only have one unique ID per element. So I'll just change those to 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I'm going to change the text here. We'll say Transformers. So we're just changing the actual content that we have to the left. I'll put Friends, and I'll put Seinfeld. Okay, let's see. There we go. All right, so we got some changes here. Where are my changes over on the page? What's going on here? Friends, why is there a V magically appearing here? I do not know. Transformers, Friends. Oh, here's your V right over here. That kind of snuck in there. Okay, and again, if I go back to and type in document, okay, and you'll see all of this within the body, a number of different elements. Okay, TV shows is the actual text node, attributes within the div is the class and the ID. We have other attributes within these li items as well. Okay, so all right, so that is pretty much your DOM tree or your structure. But now what we're going to do, now that we actually have that, now let's access that. So the biggest thing, when you're dealing with any of these elements is selecting an actual element and using its ID attribute, or you can use the class attribute. So, once you actually select the element that you want and you store it, you're then going to want to store it in a variable. So let's go on ahead and let's do that. That's a perfect example of actually accessing and doing something with the actual DOM, is selecting an actual element and applying that, all of the essence of that within an actual variable. So let's say let L equal document. Okay, and once again, the document itself is pretty much everything in the actual document itself. All right, now the document, your entire web page turns into an actual object, an object called the document. And that object, as we worked with plenty of objects earlier on in the series, is your objects have a number of different methods and properties. This particular document, which actually holds everything on your page, has a method that help you actually access additional members of the DOM. Or additional nodes within the DOM. So we're going to getElementById. That's going to be the method we're going to use, the method provided by the document object. And we are also going to, let's use the actual name of the output. Let's take a look. Actually, let's split this down so I can take a look and see what we have for our markup. All right, getElementById. Let's choose the one that we have. So we can just type in 1. Okay, and now we can use all of this here is going to be assigned to the L variable. So if I type in L in the actual console, I magically get nothing here. So let's see what we have here. I got L, I got console. Let me hit refresh, type L again, not that L. Still get nothing, so something's not right. Oh, would you look at that? I did not actually add the actual JavaScript to the page. So we need to add the script, okay, because your JavaScript is not going to work if you don't associate the actual JavaScript file with the HTML file. So we got to link those together, and this is how we do that. So we called it domtree.js, and we want to defer that and make sure that all of the HTML loads before the actual JavaScript is working. So let's see here. Let's refresh that. All right, let's go back over to the console and let's see. Type in L. Okay, so now again, this entire object and its method of getElementById is going to capture all of the ID, anything with the ID of 1. All right, the ID that we have of 1 is a list item with an ID of 1 and has the text of Family Guy. And if you notice here in the console, it's highlighted up above. So when I reach over here, it's actually highlighted on the top. So now what we're going to do is, so we take a look, we see everything here. The LI, the ID, the actual words. So now we can actually go a little further. So we selected the actual item that we want. And this is something that you're going to do a lot. You're going to, 1, try to find the actual element you want to work with. And then 2, what are you going to do with that? I have assigned everything to the L variable above. Now I'm going to actually access, now that L is an object in itself. Now what I can do is actually use the properties available that JavaScript actually gives you. And I'm going to say, you know what, let's add a class to that. And what class? Right now, there is no class attribute to the actual list item here. There is only an ID. But what I want to do is add a class of, let's say, cool. Okay. All right. So now let me go back over here, type in, actually I can go to elements and scroll. Let's scroll up a little bit so we can get access to everything on the page, and open this up and open up the div, open up the UL, just following the same structure that's in my HTML document. And now I see it has the class of cool. So what did I do here? I added. There could be some type of event happening where you click on something and you need to add a class name or remove a class name. What I simply did was I selected the actual item, the list item here, and it has an ID of 1. So I was able to capture that by using the getElementById and the same ID name here. So now from there, all of the object contents, all of the DOM, the entire what is it? The element node, everything within the actual element node itself is now assigned to the variable L. And now JavaScript provides me another method here. I'm sorry, a property class name to add an actual class named cool or anything else you want to name it to the actual element above. And that's why we now have the word class, attribute, and cool. We do not see that here, but after the JavaScript being ran or actually run, we can now see the actual addition. So if I were to uncomment or actually comment that out and then refresh, look at that. It's just a list item with an ID of 1. Okay. But if I uncomment this JavaScript below, and now the actual class name cool has been added. Now, obviously, that doesn't really change anything there because we don't the actual the actual class of cool, it didn't actually do anything. It just added that. So that's again something we would need to add. So actually, why don't we actually do that? So let's make it look a little better. as we got a lot of things going on over here. Let's add a CSS file to this, and we'll say, what is it, dom tree.css. Okay, and it's already opened here. Let's split it to the right and close this, and we do need to add that to our HTML file so it's linked. All right, so we called it dom tree.css. So we'll just make a few little changes here. All right, first thing we're going to do is make sure the font looks a little better. So let's just tackle everything here. So font family equals Arial, and the font definitely looks better now. To the left, we're going to add padding of 0, margin of 0, and now I'm just kind of going a little overboard here, but if any of this looks a little crazy, you definitely go back over to our CSS videos so you can actually see exactly what all these actually means. All right, so now that we have that, let's actually go to the div, and the div that has a class of wrapper. Let's add a border on that of 1 pixel in size. It's going to be solid and black. We'll add our own padding to the box, 3 pixels, all within the inside. Okay, and let me just increase that a little bit more, 5 pixels. That's a little better. And let me just move that over a little bit. And the margin on the outside is going to be, we'll do 5 pixels as well. Okay, all right, and what else we're gonna do here? Now let's get to that list item. So for the actual list items, so we're gonna target that with the li. We're gonna give them a height of 30 pixels. Good. So notice the change to the left. We're going to add some padding here, and we're going to go 5 pixels on the top, 5 pixels to the right of the list items, 7 pixels on the bottom of each list item, and 5 pixels on the left. We're using the box model on that. If you're not familiar with that box model, again, go over to the CSS portion of the channel. And now let's actually go back to the actual class name here. Let's actually take it out, and within the CSS, let's add that class. So .cool. Okay, I'm gonna give it a background color of light blue. Okay, and now take a look here, because now over to the left under TV shows, the first item where it says Family Guy, we're going to uncomment the l.class name equals cool. Cool is the class name that we now have within our CSS file, which is going to give the background of that li, or that list item, the color of light blue. Okay, so let's do that. Uncomment the JavaScript. And what do we have here? The list item now has a background of the class name cool, the background color of light blue, because that's what we actually programmed our JavaScript to do. So small example there, but a lot of big takeaways, because one, when you're working with the DOM, you're going to have within your document a number of different DOM elements. You are going to have a number of different attributes. You're going to have a number of different text nodes, text attributes. So a number of different things you got to work with. This is a small portion where we have a little bit of markup, a little bit of JavaScript, and a little bit of CSS all working together just to mainly say, let's just add the actual class name cool. Okay, now that's something you might, there's a number of different takeaways you can do from here. You can do add a hover effect, add a number of different class names, but as we continue to do more and more projects and actually build something even bigger and better where you can actually say, yes, I actually built that, then you're going to start noticing, wow, there's a lot of different properties and methods and different, just a number of different things within CSS, JavaScript, and HTML. And not to mention, we haven't even got to the back end yet. But without fail, as long as you continue to practice, you're going to be doing this stuff like it's nothing. Okay, so If you got any questions, comments, or concerns, I would say definitely, hey, practice with this. Play around with it. Play around with these numbers. Add the files here. Don't just watch it. Actually, if you have the time, apply it. Save things. Try and break things. Get some errors, right? Play around within the actual console and see what's available. Mess around and see everything that you can do, and then continue to build, and build. Okay. Subscribe to the channel, hit the notifications so you can actually get the alerts as to when something was actually just finished or uploaded. My team and I, we're adding content all the time, so let's go on ahead and continue to build with each other. And other than that, Full Stack is out. Have a good night and enjoy. Happy coding.